Tales of Amestralia. The Ascension of Kuzala. Solution. Throughout the night, Kuzala stayed awake for hours with her eyes open and spent time looking at the moon in the sky, illuminating the snowy night outside. Amidst the dense cloud of thoughts in her head, Kuzala ended up falling asleep. When she woke up, Kuzala slowly got up from her cozy bed and walked slowly to the bathroom where she did her morning needs. When she returned to the window, still drowsy, she saw the shops on the street below getting ready for a new day. Kuzala remembered of when she went out with her mother and sisters to go to the markets in her childhood. Kuzala became sentimental as she remembered simpler times in her life. However, in the midst of her observation, Kuzala had an idea, the idea that would solve her sister's problem without leaving any loose ends. During the hour of lunch, Kuzala appeared to visit the house of the Avurim family. She was received at the door of the residence by Kodajok, who invited her to enter, and upon arriving in the living room, Kuzala found the whole family together. In the room were the two brothers, Kodajok and Kapio, with their wives, Danithis and Marvia, Danithis' son, little Leko. Kodajok and Kapio's parents named Rako Yavurim and Abrada Yavurim. There was also the sister, Sankhya Karazi, with her husband, Yalon Karazi, and her children, and an uncle named Vasan Yavurim, brother of Rako Yavurim, the patriarch of the family. Kuzala greeted everyone and politely asked them to pay attention to what she had to say, as she was going to offer a tempting proposal to the family, especially to Kapio. Everyone looked at each other curiously and eventually became attentive to what Kuzala was about to say. Kuzala began by saying very clearly that she and everyone present knew that the marriage between Kapio and Marvia was a mistake, just as it would have been if she herself had married Kapio, and that this did not make either side happy. Kuzala mentioned that Kapio, in addition to having a wife who does not love him, also had a wife who was incapable of giving him children, a wife who wasted the only chance she had to give a descendant to his lineage in the Avurim family, who denied her husband his opportunity to have a legacy. Everyone looked at Marvia with a look of agreement, showing with expressions on their faces that they didn't like the fact that Marvia hadn't given Kapio a single child in years of marriage. Danithis especially looked at Marvia with resentment, and Marvia looked at her back, clearly irritated by the ingratiating looks they threw her way. Kuzala then argued, that since Joan, her father, had promised 2 wives to the Avurim family, and one of them defected, he only offered Marvia to the family as a means of compensating for his other daughter's desertion. Now, however, this daughter who defected, who was the one who held the original responsibility of marrying Kapio, this daughter would compensate her abandoned fiancé for the wife who didn't serve him and the family he didn't yet have. Everyone showed curious looks towards him, and Kuzala made the proposal she had come to make. Kuzala then said, looking directly into Kapio's eyes, "Kapio Yavurim, I offer you a value equivalent to 30 gold coins to annul the marriage with my sister." The eyes of everyone widen when they hear the offer. Kapio got up from the table and questioned Kuzala, asking her to say her offer again. Kuzala did so, and explained by saying that with the money he could start a new family, with a fertile wife and enough money to have his own house. Kapio reflected for a few moments while everyone grumbled around the room. Kapio approached Kuzala and said, "No." Kuzala froze with hatred for an instant. Kapio's mother spoke out criticizing her son for not accepting the proposal. Kapio, however, ignored her and continued to say, "However, I will accept your proposal if you can get 50 gold coins." Kuzala was reluctant for a few moments and looked at her sister Marvia, who was begging with her eyes for her sister to accept Kapio's condition. Kuzala sighed deeply as she tried to control her anger and accepted the deal. Kuzala mentioned to Kapio that she did not have the money at the moment, but that she would return soon with the amount. Kapio told Kuzala that he would wait for her return. Kuzala returned to the hotel where she thought about where she would get the remaining 20 gold coins. She considered selling her books, but the books alone would not yield so many gold coins. She then considered stealing some books from the library of the School of Archaeology of Turgo to sell, but chose to discard this option, as it would be disrespectful to the science she loved so much and a tremendous breach of trust with everyone who trusted her work. Suddenly Kuzala remembered Samso, who was the nephew of a rich man. Samso, who was now married to a noble woman from Seros, could arrange 20 gold coins for her. Kuzala was filled with hope when she realized there was a way to resolve the situation. The next day Kuzala said goodbye to her family and her sisters. Marvia asked if her sister could get the money to fulfill the agreement. Kuzala explained that yes, that she knew someone who could help. Marvia was obviously hopeful and smiled goodbye to her sister after giving her a big hug, and then left her to follow a journey to Seros. The journey to the city of Seros was long and lasted several days. Due to the winter weather, the horses that carried the carriage took a long time just to cover a short distance. Many accidents occurred on the road and many bandits took advantage of travelers' fragility to carry out looting and kidnappings, thus making the coachman even more cautious than normal, which made the journey take even longer between strategic stops and detours. After a long journey of more than 600 miles, the carriage arrived in the city of Nilashi, which is on the route to the city of Seros. Fortunately, the carriage in which Kuzala was riding managed to avoid being looted throughout the journey. Kuzala, as soon as she arrived in the city, looked for a hotel to stay, where she bathed and slept soundly, and then updated her diary briefly telling about her journey. After spending 2 days in the city enjoying the comfort of a roof over her head, Kuzala decided to continue her journey to Seros. She found a carriage to take her along the road to the city and continued her journey to the land where Samso was. The route up the river was slow and difficult, as in the middle of the way a big snowstorm prevented the carriage from moving for more than a whole day. Fortunately for Kuzala and the other passengers, nothing tragic happened during this period and everyone was able to continue on their way to Seros. As Kuzala approached the city, she began to see the dark tower of Seros. Just as Samso had described years before, the Tower of Seros was a tall tower over 300 feet tall, made of dark stone and possessing a robust, angular architecture that served to show the city's dominance in the region. The city was protected by a thick wall that was not very high, but had many guards. The carriage easily entered the city after a small search. Kuzala entered the city and noticed how the Black Tower of Seros was even more imposing from up close. Kuzala spent her first night in a hotel and went looking for Samso the next day. She had to ask for help to navigate the city until she found the mansion of the Lambato family which the mother of Samso was part of, and it was also the family of which his uncle, Nilvo Lambato, was the patriarch. The mansion was surrounded by a wall with many fences. The land was large and the beauty and grandeur of the building left no doubt that this was the residence of a very wealthy family. Kuzala communicated with one of the doormen and requested a conversation with Samso Nishimarov, saying that she was an acquaintance of him from the city of Turgo. Once inside the property, Kuzala was taken to the main hall of the residence where she ended up meeting a very well-dressed woman. This woman introduced herself as Shinsa Kagoma Lambato, and questioned Kuzala for wanting to talk to Samso, who was her husband. Kuzala felt that Shinsa was uncomfortable with her presence and Kuzala explained that they both knew each other from the time Samso studied in Turgo and that she was in Seros to request a help from Samso. Shinsa asked what Kuzala wanted to ask of Samso, but Kuzala insisted on speaking only to Samso, which made Shinsa slightly irritated. Samso eventually appeared in the hall and greeted Kuzala with a big smile and a big hug. Samso invited Kuzala to eat something and talk in one of the rooms of the large mansion. Kuzala tried to refuse, but Samso insisted, making it difficult for Kuzala to refuse. Samso talked to Kuzala about everyday things, asking basic questions about work and school. Kuzala answered politely while catching a glimpse of the luxury in which her friend was living, and all while Shinsa remained close and with her eyes wide open. After a few minutes of everyday conversation, Samso then asked his friend the why of the sudden visit and Kuzala insisted on talking alone with Samso, who, understanding the message, then talked to Shinsa so she could leave them alone for a few minutes, which left Shinsa uneasy. After much insistence, Samso managed to convince his wife Shinsa to leave the room and closed the doors to give privacy to his conversation with Kuzala. Kuzala explained her situation to Samso, talking about the proposal she made to grant 50 gold coins to Capio so that he could annul his marriage with Marvia. She told that over the years she managed to accumulate the equivalent of 32 gold coins in her personal safe. but that she still needed more money to cover the deal and not run out of money to pay her expenses, so she asked for Samso to lend her 20 gold coins so that she could obtain her sister's freedom. Samso comforted her friend and said that he would give her the 20 coins without her having to pay him back. Kuzala tried to deny it, saying that she should compensate him, but Samso made it very clear that his family had enough money to not miss 20 gold coins. Kuzala cried when she heard the news, and Samso went away for a few moments to speak to one of the servants of the house. When he returned, he comforted Kuzala once again. Kuzala thanked him and began to ask how his new life was going. Samso explained that now he was no longer Samso Nishimarov, which was his father's surname. He now was Samso Lambato, just like his mother. He said that to honor his uncle's family he had to abandon his father's name to get married and pass on the Lambato family legacy. His wife, Shinsa, was the second daughter of the third richest family in the city of Klokpa, the Kagoma family, and their marriage was arranged to form a business alliance that would make the two families even richer. Kuzala asked if Samso was still studying archaeology, and Samso confessed that he was, but not like he did before, as he already had a daughter and had to spend time with her. Kuzala remembered this detail and asked to see the child. She remembered that Samso had written her a letter at the time the child was born, but she ended up forgetting this detail during the travel because she was very worried about her sister. Samso called her to Niza's room, his daughter, and Kuzala met the girl. Niza was already 2 years old and looked extremely similar to her mother. Kuzala was enchanted by the girl. Kuzala tells in her diary that when she saw Samso's daughter, she felt a strange sensation, as if everyone she knew had taken a step in their lives that she had not yet taken, something that made her feel behind, something that bothered her. Samso mentioned that sometimes when he looked at Niza, he fantasized that she was daughter of Kuzala and not daughter of Shinsa. Kuzala scolded him for this, but Samso explained that he did not have strong feelings for Shinsa and that in all the years that passed he still thought about Kuzala. Kuzala felt flattered knowing that Samso was still thinking about her, but she was also uncomfortable knowing she was being lightly courted by a married man. One of the servants knocked on the door saying that the preparations Samso had requested were ready. Samso took Kuzala back to the hall. His servant gave him a black and filled box. Samso opened the small box and looked at its contents and then handed it into Kuzala's hands. Kuzala thanked him for the 20 coins, however Samso specified that there were 30 coins in total inside the box. Kuzala questioned his friend, but Samso insisted that it was not a problem for him, that Kuzala deserved that gift so she could take care of herself and her sister for the years to come. Kuzala ended up accepting the gift and gave Samso a hug of thanks and goodbye, who in turn tried to insist that Kuzala stayed for lunch with his family, but Kuzala insisted that she could not waste time, as she still had to go to Turgo to collect her savings. Samso tried to argue that he would give her more money, but Kuzala silenced him, saying that he had already done enough. Samso accepts Kuzala's argument and lets her go after a warm farewell. Kuzala then returned to the hotel where he counted the coins, and realized that there were 30 gold coins just as Samso had told her. Kuzala realized the peculiar situation in which she found herself, the situation that in just one small box there was a small fortune, a fortune that Samso did not hesitate to grant to her, as his family had much more, making it very clear to Kuzala the great difference between rich people and ordinary people. The next day Kuzala went on a trip to Turgo in order to collect the rest of the amount that was at her residence in the city. The return trip proved quicker and easier, as in some places the snow was no longer falling and in others it was falling very lightly. After several days of travel, Kuzala arrived in Turgo and went to the School of Archaeology of Turgo to justify her absence. As her vacation period had already ended, she announced that she had family problems on her travel and that she would need more time. She offered to pay so they would not fire her from her job. But after years of dedication and great friendship with everyone at the school, the directors decided to extend Kuzala's vacation period for a few more weeks so she could resolve her issues. Kuzala thanked them and went to her house to collect the rest of the amount she needed to free her sister. She retraced her journey to Rockholm, taking as much care as possible to protect her box containing a total of 50 gold coins. Kuzala arrived safely in Rockholm and soon went to the Avurim family's house. Marvia welcomed her with a big hug, and coincidentally Joan was there visiting his daughters and grandson. Joan didn't say a single word to his daughter when he saw her again. Dani this greets her, and Kuzala asked her sister to gather all the family members in the room, so she can fulfill her part of the agreement in front of everyone. After a few minutes everyone gathered in the same room where Kuzala made the proposal. Everyone except the uncle of Kodajok and Capio were present. Everyone had intense looks of curiosity to know if Kuzala had brought the amount she promised. Capio was the one who seemed least anxious when seeing Kuzala. On the other hand, Marvia welcomed her with a strong hug and saw in her sister's eyes that she would soon be free from that torment. Kuzala announced in front of everyone, "As you all already know, I made an agreement with Capio weeks ago, in which I said that if I gave him an amount equivalent to 50 gold coins, he would annul the marriage with Marvia. I took my time, but here I am to fulfill my end of the bargain." Kuzala then took out her black box and opened it and then turned it on the table, thus dumping 50 gold coins on top of it. Grunts began to resound throughout the room. Capio appeared to be happy and angry at the same moment. Marvia smiled with a twinkle in her eyes. Joan remained silent, and other members of the Avurim family just smiled upon seeing the large sum of money, especially Obreda Avurim, mother of Capio. Joan spoke with an obvious tone of irritation. "How did you get so much money? An amount like this can't be found in a few weeks." Kuzala simply responded by saying that she worked to get one part and the other he got from an acquaintance who lent her the amount. Joan questioned her, asking who the acquaintance was. Kuzala said that the identity of her acquaintance was not relevant to the matter. Joan contested and asked her again, insinuating that Kuzala had done something immoral to get the money. Dani this tried to convince his father that Kuzala had not done anything wrong, and Joan said, "I doubt nothing from this one. Someone who dishonored her own family is capable of doing anything. Who can guarantee that she didn't steal this money from someone or that she prostituted herself to get this?" Kuzala became intensely angry and began to argue with her father, and soon the entire room was filled with shouting and insults. Capio shouted louder than everyone and told everyone to shut up. He said that Kuzala had honored the agreement with him and that he was the one who should accept the money or not. Capio looked straight into Kuzala's eyes and asked if the money was clean. Kuzala replied a cold and direct yes. When looking straight into Capio's eyes, who after a few moments said, still looking straight at Kuzala, "I believe. I accept the money, and I'm going to fulfill my part of the agreement in this very day." Everyone in the room began to whisper again, except Marvia, who slowly got up and ran to hug her sister Kuzala tightly again while thanking her for getting her freed. On the same day, Capio, together with Marvia and the parents and mothers of each member of the couple, went to the Forum of Rockholm to ask for the marriage to be annulled. The annulment process took 2 days to be made official, days that passed very slowly for everyone involved. Marvia packed her belongings in 2 large suitcases while waiting for the agreement to be concluded. In the meantime she conversed with Capio about the new life that awaited both of them. Despite the tense years that the two had spent together, on the last night of their marriage the two conversed like good friends and slept in the same bed for the first time without one having resentment towards the other. And when the marriage annulment process happened to be officially annulled, Marvia ran to her room to get her heavy suitcases and went to the hotel with her sister. The two spent the night at the hotel talking about the past, the present and the future, both smiling and happy. Marvia especially, was intensely relieved to be free from Capio, the Avurim, and her father Joan, who was clearly the one who was most irritated by the situation, as Capio was slowly accepting the situation and the Avurim were very happy with the annulment of the marriage, as none of them liked Marvia. The next day the two went to the gates of Rockholm to leave the city. Capio, along with Dani this, Kodajok, Marvalia, Jarko, Iviska, and even Joan, went to the place to say goodbye. Capio talked to Marvia, clarifying that even though their marriage didn't work out, he didn't hold a grudge against her and that he would accept that she didn't like that life. Marvia confessed that she didn't hate Capio either, but that she hated living that life, a life that she had not chosen, and that now they could both start over because they still had time. Marvia wished that Capio would find someone who really wanted to be with him and build the family that he wanted so much in Capio. wished that Marvia together with Kuzala would be able to live the life they wanted, and that in case they saw each other again that they would do so as good friends who had overcome a great period of difficulty. Kodajok and Dainithis said goodbye to Marvia, wishing her good luck in her new life in Turgo. Jarko and Iviska did the same, and then Marvalia, their mother, said goodbye, shedding a river of tears while she asked them both to send letters telling about their lives in Turgo and to come back at least once a year to visit her. They both promised to try. When it was Joan's turn, the reluctant father walked over in short steps, and when he had the courage to look into his daughter's eyes, they could both see that he was almost crying. Joan said, "I know we don't have much love between us. I honestly don't understand why you two are the way you are, and I don't think I ever will, but I still want you to know that I only did what I believed was best for you. Even though I knew you didn't want to, I thought you were just young girls who didn't know anything about life, and that with time you would realize that getting married and having your families was the right thing to do, and you would prove me right. This didn't happen, and I hope you don't get to the point in your lives where you regret not going down this path." Kuzala replied coldly, "We won't. And even if we do, we will face the consequences, we will face them head on, because they will be our consequences. Consequences of choices we have made, and not choices made by someone else, not even our father." Joan stayed in silence for a few moments as he looked around. He broke his silence saying, "That's right, you are free, live the life you want. I know I did the best I could, even if I did the wrong thing. Goodbye, my daughters." Joan approached and hugged his two daughters, a strange and unusual hug for the three of them. After this singular strong hug, Joan moved away, and then the two moved to get into the carriage and follow their journey. Both left crying, especially Marvia, who had mixed feelings about saying goodbye to her family and her city, the only one she had known in her entire life. However, Kuzala comforted her, saying that it would get easier as the days went by, and Marvia leaned on her sister during the beginning of the journey into the new stage of her life.